NEE team member with you today. So first of all, my name is Tom Hairston. I do see a lot of familiar names, a lot of familiar faces as I'm scrolling past the camera views. So good to see everybody. I am the managing director for the Network for Educator Effectiveness. I've been with NEE for the past 11 years, really, and just consistently worked myself into this position, and really glad to be leading the team now, taking part in the next steps and helping create improvements, changes to NEE to help each and every one of you, your schools, your teachers. Also with me today are Kinder Christians. She is our growth director. So she's here taking care of a lot of the back end issues. She may be responding to some of the questions in chat, and also a great resource to get in touch with if you ever need. Finally, the third person in the room with us today is Chuck Mays. Chuck is our newest NEE team member, but he is about ready to finish up his first year. Chuck started with us last August and came after previously working at Sykeston. So we're really happy he's here. He's going to be talking through some of the superintendent update and training evaluation components as well. Anytime you have questions, please use chat and communicate those questions with us via chat so that we can get answers to you. And we'll have a couple of conversations. We'll have a verbal conversation. We'll have a written conversation. Most of us are very familiar with Zoom meetings by now. So we handle it, we multitask in those ways pretty well. Let me go ahead and talk through the agenda for today and talk through how this is going to go. Throughout today, we're going to ask some questions devoted to what you're planning, what you're working on, what supports you may need for 2021 and 2022. And so those are going to be interlaced throughout the day today, throughout the next couple of hours. As we do that, we're also going to talk through some updates that we have been working on at NEE and that are getting ready to be pushed out for the 2021-2022 school year, as well as some long-term projects that we want to share a little bit more about and get you a little bit more in the loop on. We'll also be discussing what summer training is going to be looking like for you, for your administrators, so you get a feel for how that is going to roll out and look, and what the administrators, those building administrators and evaluators in your district, will be participating in and learning about this year. To end the first part of the session, we're also going to provide some data tool reminders, talking through some of the important aspects of the data tool, some reports, some functions of the data tool that you may want to sink into, whether it's at the end of this school year or as you begin the next school year. After those sessions and after those sections are finished, we will do a quick break, 5-minute break. That should be about 10 o'clock or so at that point. When we come back from that break, we're going to focus on the principal evaluation components. And so if you're familiar, if you're fluent with the principal evaluation components, you can feel free to leave the meeting at that time. If you want to learn more about those principal evaluation components, if you have questions about implementation, about how to do any of them, stick around, we'll talk through it, we'll answer your questions then as well. I am going to go ahead and give me a second here, because I had this ready to be copy and pasted, and then as always I copy and pasted something over it. But I'm going to go ahead and get you a link. There you go, a link in chat. That link, if you click on it, will take you to a PDF of the slideshow that we're talking about today. Within that PDF, all of the links are active. So anytime we mention a link or anything within this slideshow you see in front of you, you'll be able to access that link via the link that you have and via that PDF packet that is at that link that's in the chat box. Now, so as we begin, we want to first of all thank you for the extraordinary circumstances that you have persevered through over the past year, 15 months. And we know the tough decisions, we know the struggles, the back and forth grind that this year has been on you. And so we want to, from the bottom of our hearts, say thank you first of all, and hopefully allow you to take a couple of seconds at least of deep, relaxing breaths as we go through and start preparing for 2021, 2022. So as we take those deep breaths, as we have a couple of minutes to just center in, I do want you to respond via chat with what are you preparing for next school year? And I'll give you a couple of minutes to respond via chat with that. And so go ahead and drop your responses into what are you preparing for next year? That could be new programs, implementation, different strategies that you're trying to get going in the classroom, some more maybe fiscal budgetary preparation. Maybe, who knows, you could even drop in vacations, anything like that. But what are you preparing for next year? And as you do that, I want to go ahead and talk through some of the ways that we're trying to be of support, that we're here to be of support within your preparations. First of all, we all know that most of you probably have quite a significant turnover, whether that be teachers, whether that be administrators, anything like that. And so we do want to talk just quickly about ways that we could help support the new teachers to your district, the new administrators to your district, or your district as a whole. And here I'm going to talk exclusively about EdHub. EdHub has a few different materials, few different resources within it that are really going to be helpful as you begin the 2021-2022 school year. First of all, the beginning teacher assistance. So that beginning teacher assistance activities, trainings, modules that are within EdHub meet the state requirements, meet the state criteria for the beginning teacher assistance that new teachers have to go through to meet that state requirement. And so you can utilize those, have your beginning teachers and their mentors participate within those activities, document that participation, and that could serve as your beginning teacher assistance modules and training for next year. We also do have dyslexia modules, as that state requirement is still in place in the state of Missouri. So you could access those dyslexia modules, have your educators go through the professional development that is required for that. Those, again, meet that state requirement and is a quick way for teachers to do that at their own pace, or small groups, or with a whole building. The third part I want to remind you of and get your eyes on is the introductions in EdHub to both the Network for Educator Effectiveness and to EdHub as its own entity. These are going to be great for your new teachers to view, to work on, just so they understand what the evaluation system that they are in looks like and how it operates. It's also going to be great for returning teachers to get, again, just a fresh look at it, a understanding of what NEE is and how the evaluation process should work. We also know MSIP 6 is coming up, and we're here to support with MSIP 6. There's a few elements in there that we want to make you aware of for what could be utilized with MSIP 6 and some documentation required around that. First of all, the student survey component could be extremely beneficial if your district is utilizing or will be utilizing the student survey component to get student feedback to put that documentation within your MSIP 6 reporting. Secondly, in terms of student growth and showing student growth over time, do remember that the unit of instruction, element 5B, is our central point for documentation around showing student growth over time. And so definitely utilize those resources within your MSIP 6 reporting. And if you need more information on how to do that, be in touch with us at nee@missouri.edu, and we will walk you through those steps. We also know that MSIP 6 will have at least some focus on social emotional learning. And so we'll come back to this in a bit, but we are working on developing some more resources for you, for your districts around social emotional learning, how to measure, how to evaluate the effectiveness of those within your buildings and within your district as well. Finally, just some other ways to help you prepare for 2021, 2022. And this gets back into the return to normalcy. We've heard a lot about how instructional leadership has had to take a step back this year for multiple reasons, and that a lot of decisions have been made from a managerial point of view. And so as you're thinking, if your district is moving back into that instructional leadership mode, there's a few resources I want to make you aware of. And again, as you have questions about these, do be in touch with them. The first is the monthly implementation timeline. That's a document available within the help and resources section of the NEE Data Tool. And that's going to give you an idea of month by month what should be going on in terms of NEE evaluation and what should kind of that step-by-step process be throughout the year. We also want to really during summer training, try and focus on getting evaluators back into the classroom as quickly as possible. Again, with the inundation of new teachers in many districts, setting that culture of we're going to be in the classroom, we're going to be observing, we're going to be offering feedback and moving as quickly as possible to do that. Okay, again, as you have questions, do drop those into chat, and Chuck and Kendra will be happy to take those questions on right now as I continue to talk. The next thing I'm going to talk about are updates to NEE. The first updates I'm going to talk about are updates to EdHub. We have a couple of really great modules that we've added into EdHub based off of feedback from our districts. The first are modules that we are calling Building Instructional Skills modules. These modules are tied to specific scores, aligned to specific scores that teachers receive within classroom observation reports. From feedback from principals and from superintendents, we hear often of, is there anything that aligns directly with, say, a score of 1 on indicator 1.2? And in the past, we've had to say, well, this kind of fits. We've reimagined some of the work within EdHub, and we've built new modules that work directly with a specific indicator and a specific score within that indicator. And so if a teacher needs basic understanding of the fundamentals, whether it's of cognitive engagement, formative assessment, other indicators available within those instructional skills modules, you have a repository there to get that very basic understanding and get documentation of the teacher going through that process. We have those for the low scores, those that may consistently score between 0 and 2 on a specific indicator. We also have them for teachers for observations that are consistently in that 3 to 5 scoring range. And so if a teacher is having trouble implementing fluently and getting those teaching practices occurring most of the time in the classroom, we have instructional skills modules, again, designed to get them to that next step so that they are building how often, how frequently that specific instructional practice is occurring within their classroom. The other piece that we have worked on extremely hard this year is culturally responsive teaching. And this is work that is continually ongoing. But this year we have developed EdHub modules for culturally responsive teaching that will help provide individual teachers, small groups of teachers, a whole school, a whole district with information on how to teach in a way that is culturally responsive. This will align really well with the social emotional learning aspects that I mentioned previously. We're also working during this summer to get some videos and some feedback of those classroom observations around culturally responsive teaching practices. And so by the end of the summer, do be on the lookout for those videos focusing on culturally responsive teaching, how effective that teaching is within different classrooms to be available within EdHub for you to view, for you to utilize with your teachers as well. The next part I want to talk about is another update that we have made that has been available within the data tool for most of the year. But these are what we call learning organizers. Over the past few years, as a member of NEE, and as we get feedback as an NEE team from our member districts, we hear quite a bit about how can I make sure that the teacher or that a group of teachers is going through the professional development, is actually implementing it, reflecting on it, et cetera, and doing it in a way outside of that professional development plan. And so we created and put into the data tool this year, learning organizers. These organizers are geared towards professional development. They're non-evaluative, meaning that they don't have scores associated with them, meaning that they don't show up within a summative report. But what does show up is the reasons why the teacher took part in that professional development process, how they implemented what they learned from that professional development into their classroom, and then their reflection on what that meant, how it changed their teaching. At the end of each of those organizers, a teacher is able to enter in the number of hours they spent, whether that was in the learning phase, the implementing phase, or the reflecting phase. Those hours then collect for individual teachers and for a building as a whole in a report that then you can utilize at the building or at the district level to show, to gain information on how many PD hours a teacher has spent learning, implementing, and reflecting on instructional practices and on other aspects of their educational career throughout the year in your school. These should work to promote growth. These should work to promote conversation between a teacher and a principal, a teacher and a curriculum director, any combination, but they should work, again, to promote that growth and at the building and district level, provide you some reporting functions and get a good idea of how many hours a teacher is spending within professional development. Again, as you have questions about those, be in touch with us at nee@missouri.edu. The third piece I want to talk about is the Instructional Coach Evaluation Organizer. We promised you this would be ready to go at the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year. For a few reasons, it wasn't quite ready to go at the 2020-2021 school year, but we've been building it throughout the year. And it is finally updated within the data tool and fully functional. One of the great behind the scenes aspects, and the real reason it took a long time to get built into the data tool, is we added a lot more modulation to the organizer itself. In the past, we've always said you could select just a few elements out of the 10 to 12 elements that may appear within an organizer. Select a few for your teacher or for your specialist to focus on. With the Instructional Coach Evaluation Organizer, we've moved to the next step. Instead of you being able to leave boxes empty, there's now check boxes that as they're clicked, they pop up. And so the only boxes that appear will be the elements that the instructional coach and the principal or their supervisor have agreed on makes up their evaluation. And so long term, that's going to really carry over into future changes, future updates we make, whether that's to the professional development plan, whether that's to other specialist evaluation organizers, or to the unit of instruction as well. Really excited about it in a very nerdy, techie way, but I hope it's going to be helpful to you all as we move forward with the next generations of NEE. At this time, I want to go ahead and talk through a few of the long-term projects we're working on. So you can see 4 main topics that we're working on, 4 main projects. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about each one of those. The first of those is a peer observation tool. I just mentioned the Instructional Coach Evaluation Organizer. As we worked on that back in 2018, 2019, one of the common points that came up in our focus groups was that there needed to be some way to collect data systematically on a coaching cycle, but not have it carried over into an evaluation cycle. We needed to keep that confidentiality. We needed to keep that trust. So we're developing a peer observation tool that will work to do just that. A way for a teacher either to have other teachers come in and observe and provide feedback to them on what's happening, or for, in an instance, a mentor teacher and a beginning teacher to work together on peer observation, classroom observation processes as well. We're getting ready to launch a pilot in August for this peer observation tool. We're still very interested in any districts that would be willing to be partners and to provide us feedback on that pilot. But as we go through 2021, 2022, we're going to be working with our IT team, with some other members at the university, to build up that peer observation tool to figure out what kind of reports can we generate, what kind of scheduling assistance can we take care of to remove some of the headache that comes with trying to schedule peer observations. So we're going to be working on that quite a bit. We're really excited about it, excited about what it could mean for districts, and are looking forward to the work ahead with that. And we will be in touch throughout this coming year with the advancements and with where we are in the process of that peer observation tool. The second process that we're really excited about, and we have some webinars coming up really quickly on this, is a educator pipeline project. We all know that the need for teachers to get into the profession is growing rapidly. And so we're doing our best to work with Career tech centers, work with school districts, work with institutes of higher education to have an educator pipeline project in place that helps with the communication, the coordination of getting students within your district to become the teachers within your district. We're really excited about that webinar or that process and that whole project. I don't want to steal too much of Mark Doss's thunder with that. But if you are interested within the events page at our home website, you can get to a couple of those webinars. They are on May 28th and June 9th. And you could get to those again, neeadvantage.com/events. We would love to see you there. Love to gauge your interest and provide a little more information on what that educator pipeline project will look like. The third update we're making is an other indicator. This has come up quite a bit again. The feedback from districts, both within the network and potential districts as well, about the need to maybe stray a little away from the indicators available within our list of 27 observable indicators and 36 overall indicators. So what we're working on this summer is an other indicator. It allows you to customize language so that you can observe and so that your evaluators can observe on something specific to your district or to the needs of your district. With that, you'll also be able to not only customize the indicator, you'll also be able to customize the scoring rubric. We're only, as of right now, doing that for one indicator per district, and it is going to be a district level decision, meaning that individual schools can't come up with their own individual indicators. It's one indicator per district that will be available to each district for you to customize and individualize. And again, hopefully that makes a little more opportunity for you all to measure, to evaluate what really matters at your own district. The last piece we're working on, and this is one of the longer term projects, is an updated principal evaluation process. We're looking back at the data, both within our own database of the NEE principal evaluation, along with other research, and we're looking to update that principal evaluation process over the next couple of years. For the next at least 2 years, this process, as is, that we'll talk about in just a few minutes, will stay in place. But within 2 to 3 years, we're really excited to roll out, start piloting, and then hopefully start building into the data tool the next principal evaluation process as well. So those are a quick look at the updates that we have worked on and are working on. And now I want to go ahead and ask you, what are ways NEE can provide support to you and your team? So go ahead and chat. Let me know some different ways that we may be able to provide support to you next year. What are you needing? What do you think your building administrators, your teachers need? And go ahead and put those into chat. We will take a look at those and we will do our best to provide all the support we can, as always and in all ways that we can. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then here in a minute, I will also share some current ways that we are looking to provide support as well. I do want to go ahead and talk about some of the consistent ways that we provide support to the network as a whole. And as always, we are more than happy. We are waiting and willing to provide support to your individual district and to individual administrators in your district as well. And so definitely be in touch with us anytime at nee@missouri.edu, no matter how big or small that ask may seem to you, so that we can help out, can support, can be there in any and every way. So some of the general supports that we offer, we do have a blog, and we publish a new blog topic, a new blog post every Wednesday. We also make that published blog available via social media, via our monthly newsletter, so you can see what we've been talking about each month. One of the great blog series that we developed this past month was Sherry Patterson's blogs on the professional improvement plan process, taking it from the very first steps of how to identify when a PIP may need to be thought about, to how to have the conversation, how to have the conversation with teachers, how to document, what comes next. It's a great, very informational series. Really excited about what that could generate and the learning that's in it for principals that may never have gone through that professional improvement plan process, just as a great source of knowledge for that. But we do have blogs every Wednesday. If there are certain topics that you want to have us address or that you want more information about, definitely be in touch with us and let us know. We can spend some time that you may not have, that your administrators may not have, pulling together resources, pulling together thoughts on topics that are of interest or of importance for you and for the network in general. We also host webinars. And this summer, we will be planning out what those webinar series will be about for the fall and the spring throughout 2021, 2022. They do all revolve around supporting instructional leadership or enhancing knowledge around NEE. We are also looking at a couple of new ways to be with you more consistently. One of those includes a weekly office hours where we will have just an open Zoom room for administrators to pop in, pop out of with questions so they could get support in that way. Without stealing too much of Chuck's thunder here in a second as he talks about summer training, I also want to emphasize that anytime we could be of help, whether that's consultation, whether that's just being a listening ear, whether that's helping an administrator prepare for a really tough feedback conference, that's a great opportunity to get in touch with us. We have years of experience with how to have successful conferences, how to set up something so that a teacher may grow. And so do be in touch with us. And have your administrators be in touch with us for those consultations, for those listening ears anytime they may need. Okay, thank you all for your input via chat on those questions. I'm going to step back. You're probably tired of hearing my voice by now, and I'm going to let Chuck take over and talk through some of the overview around summer training.
Hi, everyone. As Tom said, I'll be talking about summer training and a little bit about the data tool in a few minutes as well. I do want to mention that we do have, as usual, two types of evaluator training. We'll have recertification training, and this training is required for all experienced evaluators who've completed training in past years. And we'll also have new evaluator training like we've done in the past for those evaluators who are new to NEE classroom observations, the NEE evaluation program. I want to talk about the recertification training for just a moment. There are two options for the recertification training. Those who will be using NEE in the buildings can participate in either on demand or Zoom training. I want to talk about the Zoom training first for a moment. I think we're all a little pumped. We had our first Zoom training yesterday and it went really well. I don't know, you'll understand where I'm coming from. When you have several people going together and planning something and the first time you implemented it, it goes pretty smooth. It's always exciting, but the training was very good. And we got some good feedback as far as some things we implemented. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. I do want to mention the Zoom training will look a little different this year. We will be making use of breakout rooms. In fact, most of the training time will be devoted to working in breakout rooms. So you'll have smaller groups of people talking about what goes into the training this year. I also want to mention too, there is a 2-hour pre-activity that's associated with the training as well that needs to be completed beforehand. And that information will be sent out prior to the training. But anyway, when we get into the breakout rooms, we really dive deep into that pre-activity and we dive deep into the concepts that we've introduced in that training. In addition, we also have breakout rooms toward the end of the training that will be specific to certain groups of educators. We'll have a breakout room for elementary evaluators. We'll have a breakout room for secondary evaluators, and we'll have a breakout room for those evaluators who've only completed 1 or 2 years of previous experience with NEE evaluations. In addition, some of the trainings will have breakout rooms for special education directors, for early childhood directors. Paul, I noticed a moment ago, you talked about career and tech educators and some resources for that. We'll have a breakout room in some of the sessions for career and technology educators and also for district administrators as well. If that's an interest to you or the evaluators that you have in your district, when you register or they register for training, they just need to check and see if those breakout rooms are offered during that training time and they can participate in that as well. Also, the on-demand training is a self-paced training. It's a training designed where administrators who are going to be evaluating can stop and start the training and restart at any time during that time period. There's a month to complete the training. We started in May. We've had good participation so far. Again, that starting and stopping can be done as long as administrators use the same computer and the same browser for that training. As long as they do that, they can stop and start as much as they want to during that month time. And I think that's been pretty popular with administrators, having that freedom to kind of work at their own pace and work on that as they're able to do so. I do also want to talk about the focus for the training. I did mention the training looks a little different this year, and that's true for both the Zoom sessions and also the on-demand. The training this year will be centered on feedback conference, the recertification training will be centered on feedback conferences, and we'll spend the majority of the time talking about those feedback conferences after evaluators have observed teachers in classroom observations. Specifically, what we want to do is work with evaluators on matching the feedback type of a conference with exactly what that teacher needs. Administrators have expressed a need for guidance in this area in the past, but probably the biggest reason we're offering this is because our own research has supported that focused individualized feedback has a positive effect on teachers' instructional effectiveness and student growth, especially when the teacher finds that feedback effective for them and finds a lot of faith in that feedback. So when administrators can match that feedback type to exactly what that teacher needs, whether they're a teacher who's struggling with that area, whether it's with that concept, or whether it's a teacher who's has some expression of competence in that area, you can express, or those evaluators can have that feedback path match what those teachers need. We did have some very good feedback yesterday from this feedback focus from those who attended. And so I think that's something that your evaluators will be surprised at first when they go to the training, because it is different, but they'll also find that it's very useful. And I think that they'll find a lot of benefit from attending. Registration for this training is now open at the address that's on the slide there, or if you've got the slide pulled up, you have a link to that. Also on the NEE homepage, there's a scheduled training button, and you can click that as well and sign up for that training. Secondly, as I mentioned, we have new evaluator training. This training is for new evaluators with no previous experience as an evaluator with NEE. It will be pretty much focused on that overview of NEE and begins with calibration on classroom observations. It is a one-day mix of asynchronous and synchronous activities. And I think you'll find that it's very helpful for your new evaluators on kind of getting an idea of what NEE is and being able to work with all we have to offer. Administrators can sign up for this, new evaluators, with the link on the screen, or they can also sign up on the homepage again under scheduled training. I do want to mention too, and I'll just be honest, this happened to me as a central office administrator. Sometimes I would have new hires for administrative positions that would come in late in the summer, and trying to get all this scheduled and get them into training was sometimes difficult. One of the things that you can do this year is you can sign those administrators up yourselves for this new evaluator training. So if you have evaluators or administrators who are going to be coming on board with you and you're trying to hurry and get this done, rather than trying to connect with them and get them to sign up, you can take care of that yourself at that address. So that's a handy thing I think you'll find beneficial. All right, the next thing, Tom talked a minute ago about the new activities and things that you're looking forward to in the upcoming school year. And to be honest with you, I was kind of blown away at the range of different activities that you've got going on. So obviously, many of you are looking forward to the next year and maybe implementing some things that you've not been able to implement in this past year, understandably, with all you've had going on. So looking forward to the remainder of this school year, looking into the summer and into next school year, we're curious to know, what are your big stressors? One of the things that Tom mentioned is that we do want to look at what's stressing you or what you're undertaking and seeing what we can do to support that. So let us know in chat, what are the things that are stressing you at this time? I'll give you a minute to write those things in chat before we continue. While you're typing too, I did mention that I know that many of us are looking forward to maybe a little less restrictive environment than we've had this past year with the COVID situation. I know in some of the different meetings that I had with mostly building principals, they were talking about the fact that they never learned about contact tracing when they worked on their degree. They never thought they would be dealing with masks and situations such as that. So I know for many of you, you're looking at just getting back to some sense of normalcy. I see Lyle's talking about needing to hire teachers and no applications coming in, which is a big concern. So I can see where that would be a stressor. Learning the context of your new district. I noticed that we had a couple of those of you in attendance today talking about being new superintendents. I know some of you have changed to different districts. And so I understand the stress that comes with that as well. Shannon, I see the same thing with hiring teachers. I understand the data-driven need as well, and the use of new software. And Steve, I'm going to tell you that was something that we've actually discussed too, how this end of the school year and wrapping everything up and graduation and everything that goes with closing down a school year is a stressor. And I'll just be honest, in my previous experience, these last few weeks and even into June, trying to shut down the school year and look forward to the next one, it completely stressed me out. So I understand where you're coming from as well. And, you know, Dion, I'll have to say too, I can understand why teacher morale would be maybe lagging at this moment, and confidence with student growth would be lagging as well with everything that teachers and students have gone through this year. I agree, Benji. Just need to take a breath. Yeah, Christian, I get that as well. Being concerned about the number of students returning from virtual environment, how far behind they likely will be when they return to physical school. I used to work, of course, I did it prior to the whole COVID situation, but I worked with a virtual school program in our district at Sykeston, and that was always a concern with us as well, with students coming back and how vigilant they had been to work on the virtual program. And so I understand that as well. Yeah, and Megan, the same thing as well. And you know, that's something that we've discussed too, is just trying to reinstate some of the things that you were doing in the past, and then looking forward to new initiatives, you know, and getting back into that swing of things and supporting teachers on that. I understand where you're coming from with that as well. All right, continue to go ahead and put the comments in chat. I think those are all good. It's interesting to see, I'm seeing a pattern of concern about hiring teachers and not having a lot of applications out there. I will mention too that we are working on the rural pipeline project, which hopefully will add some assistance to you in that area as well. But I do know that that is a stressor, and I understand, I've been in your shoes as well, trying to find teachers for positions when you don't have a lot of applications. I'm also seeing several comments about the virtual students returning and support for them and getting them back on track as well. So that will be something that I think that many of you will be dealing with also. All right, and continue putting comments in if you've got them. Kendra will take and copy these comments that you've made, and we'll look at those just to see what support that we can give to you over the coming year. And we take those very seriously. If you think of something later, drop it in chat anyway. Kendra's good at that. She can catch it, or you can always email us and we'll make sure that we take that in consideration as we go forward. All right, I'm going to move on to the data tool then. And if you have other comments, feel free to put those into chat and we'll go from there. Okay, Tom mentioned a few things about the data tool a moment ago. I do just want to talk briefly about a few other things, and I also want to build on some things Tom said as well. The data tool is useful for reviewing reports and information, which are very helpful to each of you. And I'm sensing that we have a wide variety of experience in our room today. So as we go through, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to go into that in more detail with you. The first thing I want to talk about are the reports that we have on the slide, on slide 15 that's showing now. The first one being the indicator trend report. And this is one that we use quite often in my former district. This report reviews progress toward the focused indicators within your district. It's found on the left side of the screen in the data tool under status reports. And again, it will give you that information concerning those indicators within your district. The first report does give you an overall picture of your district, but you do have the ability to drill down into reports for individual buildings. You can even drill down to a specific group of teacher or teachers. So if you want to look at how your new teachers are doing, for example, with your focus indicators, you can do so. You could look at a certain grade level or subject area group if you wanted to, but that capability is there. And if you're familiar with holding the control button down and clicking on various teachers, or buildings, that is how you run those reports, and it works pretty smoothly. This time of the year is a good time to review progress on those focus indicators as you look forward to planning for the next year. And I do want to mention too, when you're looking at those, it is possible to look at that report from prior years as well. So if you want to compare your progress over 2 or 3 years, that capability is in that report also. The next report is Building Activity Report, another report that's extremely useful for you in the central office position. This report is capable of looking at, within a building, the status of all the classroom observations, unit of instructions, and PD plans. So what you have when you run the report is you'll have a list of teachers, and you'll have columns for each of those areas: classroom observations, unit of instruction, and PD plan. And you can see where that teacher is in that process in each building. It's very useful to look at it at a glance. It's actually, as you go through, you can just kind of look quickly and see how things are going in that building. And that's something that we would look at various times during the school year, just to get a feel for how things are going and address some things there if we needed to, as far as getting things accomplished. The next report is the student survey summary report. The student survey is actually very useful information within the buildings to see kind of what's going on within the individual classrooms. You can look at the survey report for each indicator as you go through that report. You can drill down to each indicator, I should say, and look at that information. It's very accurate information, and I think that you'll find it's very helpful in seeing how the students view what's going on in the classroom. We found our research has indicated that when you look at the student survey report, it often matches what you see in your classroom observations, and so students do have a good feel for what's going on in classrooms. Again, I would recommend looking at that if possible. The Screen 18A report, I won't say that I'm happy to talk about that. This was a duty that I had when I was at the central office location. I worked with core data a lot more than I probably ever thought I would. But the Screen 18A report is a report in core data that gives each teacher and where they're at on their evaluations, like a summary of their classroom observations that's reported in core data. To be honest with you, it's really pretty much impossible to complete that report without running the Screen 18A report in the data tool, but that will give you information that you need to fill in where your teachers are, which column they're in on those 7 different areas on that report. So again, if you're responsible for doing that, if you oversee someone who's responsible for doing that, this is a report that they'll need to complete that information. And if you do have any questions about this screen or this report or any of these reports for that matter, feel free to drop a note in chat or email us or call the help desk. We'll be happy to work with you on that. EdHub is our next area that I want to discuss. And a lot of people associate EdHub as being a resource for teachers who are having difficulty with certain areas. And it certainly is that. There are a lot of resources in EdHub for PD, for teachers to build instructional skills wherever that they're at as far as their growth process. But as Tom mentioned a specific module this morning, the building individual skills module. That module will be able to address teachers at wherever they are in their growth, whatever scores they have, whether it's 0 to 2 or 3 to 5 or the higher scores. And there's other resources as well for teachers who may need help, not because they're weak in an area, but just want to grow in that area as well. So there's a wealth of information in EdHub. I would invite you to look at that and see what would be beneficial to helping you in your buildings with your principals and with your teachers. There's also, and I saw this in chat today too, someone wanted to work on working on calibrating their classroom observation scores with their administrators. There are videos and information to allow evaluators to calibrate on classroom observation. So that information is in EdHub and it's very useful for that purpose. There's also on-demand information on a number of topics and resources for mostly anything that you would need. And I know Tom mentioned them earlier, but I'm going to repeat this just to maybe focus a little more on that too. There are modules that are associated with the Beginning Teacher Assistance Program and dyslexia training. They're very good modules that do satisfy or meet the state requirements that you have for PD for those areas. And so that is something that would be beneficial if you're interested in covering those 2 areas. And lastly, on this screen, we have the help and resources section. You can think of the help and resources section as a one-stop location to find walkthroughs and how-tos for NEE components. If you're looking for a form or how to accomplish something, that's probably the first place to go, the help and resources section. You can usually find that quickly there. If you're looking for a deeper dive, you need to look at EdHub for the modules that are associated with that, and you'll find it very helpful. Before we leave this slide, I do want to mention too, we've talked about calling us or notifying us if you have any questions. And I noticed again in chat this morning that someone was talking about might need some additional help with how to use EdHub and other resources that NEE has. Please call the help desk if you have any questions with that. There are several of us at NEE who are happy to help you with this at any time. Most of the time you can get a call, you can get an answer to your questions directly through the help desk. But if you do have deeper questions, there are many of us at NEE who can get in touch with you and walk through that process with you. As Tom mentioned this morning, if you're looking at a PIP, or excuse me, looking at a evaluation conference, it's going to be a little sticky and maybe you'd like to walk through and talk through someone with that, we're happy to do that. So don't hesitate to call if you have any questions. Call the help desk. Kendra's put that in chat this morning and the email address as well, and we'll be happy to work with you on any of those things that you need assistance with. All right, I want to talk a little bit more about the EdHub modules. I mentioned, or I followed up on the module that Tom had mentioned, the building instructional skills, and he also mentioned the culturally responsive teaching modules this morning, which are very good modules and new modules in NEE. I would recommend using those if that meets your needs. I also want to talk about a couple more modules this morning. One of those is the managing NEE in your district module. If you look at the top of that slide, you'll see the four of those areas that this module covers. Again, if you're new to the NEE process, maybe new at the central office area and want to go through and just kind of see how you can do all the things that NEE offers, that module is very good for introducing you to those concepts. Also, if you need help with just a specific skill in the data tool, you can see that information is there as well. And so I think that'll be a very useful module for you if you're interested in learning more about NEE and how that can work in your district. Also, you see the EdHub module providing effective feedback to teachers. I mentioned earlier that our recertification training this year really deals deeply with feedback. And so this information you have in this module will give you an overview of the feedback component within your classroom observation feedback conferences and what you're doing or what your administrators are doing to plan for those. If you're looking at the training that we're having, consider a deeper dive into this area. So we're not changing things with our training this year. What we're talking about with feedback conferences just goes much deeper into these concepts that are here. But this module will be helpful to you if you're looking at working with your administrators on how to conduct your feedback conferences in a good manner, how to plan for that, how to make those conferences be as effective as they can. And if you combine that with our recertification training, I think you're going to find that that's very useful. I will mention too, and I'm a little bit off the subject, but I want to mention it before I forget. We did have a really good conversation yesterday with a couple of district administrators about the feedback components that we're offering in the recertification training. If you are not planning on attending that as a central office person, you might reconsider that, because that information that's shared there would be beneficial to you as you're working with your principals in the future. I just think that you would get a lot out of it. We had the district evaluators or the district members breakout room, and we had really good discussion on how that's going to look at a building level. So I just think that would be helpful to you. Again, that's your choice, but I just want to mention that before we move on away from this feedback module. At the bottom of the screen, Tom mentioned the blog series on the PIP process. I just want to put a shout out in general for the NEE blog. That blog has current timely information on a number of different subjects. If you're not looking at it, you can find a link to the blog on the NEE Advantage homepage. But specifically, I just want to echo really quickly what Tom said about this blog series. It's very, very good, not only to look at how to go about writing your PIP, the PIP for administrators, but also what to do before you get to that PIP process. I mentioned in the last training we had, if I was still at central office, this would be required reading for any administrators I had who might have responsibility for implementing an improvement plan. I'm just going to put that shout out there. I would advise you to look at it. Kendra had the link earlier in chat to that blog series. And if you get a chance to look at that and see if it'll be effective for you as well. And on the bottom right, you'll see a module for what goes into creating a short-term professional growth plan. That's also something in the data tool that will be helpful for your administrators if they're looking at writing this professional growth plan. Do I have any questions about that before I move to the next slide? All right, awesome. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in chat, or you can always call and we'll be happy to talk to you about that and see if we can help you with that process. We're getting ready to go into the principal evaluation, and Tom's going to talk about that in just a moment as well. But kind of to segue into that, I think it would be interesting before we go on our break and come back and talk about principal evaluation to hear what successes you've had with the principal evaluation measures in your district. So if you have any success stories that you would like to mention, go ahead and put those in chat. I'll give you a minute or so to do that, and then we'll talk about a few things before we go on to our break. While you're typing and thinking, I'll just give you a personal success that I had with working with my principals on evaluation before. Probably one of the biggest successes I had to do with the teacher survey and that part of the principal evaluation process. I'll be honest with you, it caused a pretty fierce conversation in looking at some of the things that were in that that teacher survey. But going through that process with that administrator actually caused some improvement, actually quite a bit of improvement in that administrator. And it also shed light on maybe some things that we weren't aware of and maybe the administrator wasn't aware of without having that survey process. So there are many things in the principal evaluation process that you may have successes with. But for me personally, that was just something that worked very well in our situation. I'll also say too, while I'm waiting for the chat comments there too, the building improvement plan portion of the evaluation, I also found very helpful. It caused me to be able to see what buildings we're wanting to focus on. It allowed me to see how their focus compared with the district focus, and also provided for some very good conversations as we went through that process with the principal evaluation. Are there any other comments this morning along that line? Yeah, I appreciate that, Benji. And it's not just the teacher survey, but all of that information together that you have and discussing that data that you have, all those components together do help you to have those real conversations with your administrators. And that's what it's really about, is having a real conversation, not a superficial conversation, and being able to look deeply at what successes you're having and what areas of growth are needed as well. Okay, I'll wait a minute longer in case we have any other comments. And Shannon, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to wait to address that because I know that Tom is going to cover that in a moment, but I do think there is a piece of the evaluation process that he can share with you that might help you with that issue. So I'm going to hold off and let Tom have that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop. If you have other successes that you would like to mention, feel free to put those in chat. I know that Tom is probably going to take us to a break in just a moment, but we'll be monitoring that chat as we go along. And again, if you have any other comments or things, put those in chat. We're happy to see them. And I know I've pushed it already, but I want to push again. If you have anything that you need help with, please call the help desk and let us help you with that. We're happy to do so at any time. Thanks, everybody. I've enjoyed talking to you this morning. I'm going to hang around and listen to the rest of Tom's part as well, but I appreciate all the comments and your attention today.
All right. Thank you, Chuck, for those updates, for talking through what we have available within the data tool, the EdHub, whether that be reports, materials, modules, etc. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We will bring it back at 10:10. Give you a chance to stretch your legs, zone out, grab popcorn, whatever you may need. But we'll bring it back at 10:10 to talk through principal evaluation. Again, if you're confident within your principal evaluation practices, systems, go ahead. You could leave the meeting now. Thank you for attending this first hour and getting the updates. But if you want to stick around, please do so. We will talk about principal evaluation starting at 10:10. Thank you. Okay, during this part of the conversation, I'm going to talk about the components of principal evaluation. As you have questions, even if they're specific to your specific district, your specific needs, go ahead and ask those in chat. Again, we will be saving the chat conversations. And so if you ask a question in chat, we will get in touch with you with an answer later as well. You can also, as you think of questions, think of needs after you leave. Again, get in touch with us at nee@missouri.edu, but or call us as well. But if you do have questions, do make sure that we answer those questions. We will take care of it. We will take care of you as we can. So the principal evaluation measures that we use and that we have available for your district to use are developed from the PCEL standards, those standards that used to be called many moons ago, the ISLIC standards. And you can see on slide 19, the list of those standards. We've tried our best to incorporate indicators, standards from PCEL within each of the measures. And we've also tried to make the principal evaluation measures as focused on instructional leadership as we can. We do know, and this is one of the reasons that we are working on updating the principal evaluation measures, that there are some other areas that may have been minimized a little bit too much, as Shannon mentioned in chat, maybe some managerial aspects that we need to build up. And so that is why we are taking a deep look at principal evaluation and finding out what our next steps need to be as we reintroduce it over the coming years. The principal summative is where we're going to start. And we start at the end to give you an idea of all of the data points that contribute to the principal summative, or that can contribute to the principal summative. There are 6 data points, 6 measures available for your district to use to make available within the principal evaluation process. As with the teacher evaluation, all of the other educator evaluation measures, the measures you use are up to you, are up to the needs of your district, your administrators. And so as we talk about the summative as a whole, the only ones that will appear are those that you've selected and that you've said, yes, this is important. This is something I want to measure. I want to evaluate, and I want to make sure that the building administrators within my district are doing. So I want to focus first on those that have solid lines connecting them to the principal summative. And I'm focusing on these first because they are direct ties from data within the data tool to the principal summative itself. So that's the building personnel development organizer, the principal professional development plan, the building improvement plan process organizer, as well as the teacher survey. All four of those have data that's entered into the data tool, scored in the data tool, and then automatically populates within the principal summative report. The other two that you see connected to the principal summative by dashed lines are outside of the data tool, but may still be utilized, may still be data to include within the principal summative when that opportunity comes. We'll talk about those as well. And again, as you have questions, do please ask, make sure I am addressing the questions that you have. The purpose of the principal evaluation process is to document the current ability of the principal to be an effective instructional leader. So we know that principals really impact student achievement by how they influence practices, how they influence the school culture, and how they are seen as an instructional leader. And so as we talk about that, that's our lens, is instructional leadership. We'll talk about updates we've made, some other ways that we may be able to tie other aspects in it as well. But most of this is going to be focused on how they build the culture to build, maintain, and sustain that instructional leadership that gets passed down from their office to classrooms and builds those really strong student environments. We do have resources available for you. And if you do have the PDF packet pulled up on a browser and you're just listening to this, you can click on any of these resources that you see within the green buttons, and those will take you to the exact document, the exact module that I am going through at the time. You may have to log into the data tool to access some of these. That's okay. You could go ahead and do that, and then you should be taken directly to the resource itself. So we do have resources available for when you're introducing or when you're setting up how this principal evaluation process is going to look. The first resource, you can see the top button says EdHub Module. How does NEE evaluate school administrators? Just like the EdHub module introducing NEE to teachers, this introduces the principal evaluation process to your administrators. It may be something that you can utilize in an administrative team meeting. Maybe for some it's a review, maybe for some it's brand new, but you can go through that process and again, remind each administrator or fill in each administrator on the purpose of the principal evaluation process and then how it runs throughout the year. We also have available the overall NEE implementation checklist. Part of that checklist is a heading devoted specifically to the principal evaluation process component. You can look at that checklist, see what you have in place, see what you may need to get in place to help make sure that the principal evaluation process is implemented with fidelity. As you're going through that checklist, as you're looking at stuff, you have questions, you need some support, again, be in touch with us. We're here to help. Then the third resource we have available is a monthly implementation timeline. Within that, you'll see a month-by-month process of whether it's a Whether you're a new district to the principal evaluation process or a returning district, this will provide a month-by-month breakdown of what should be happening when. When should I, as a supervisor of administrators, be having conversations with those administrators? When should administrators be working on various organizers? When should I drop that teacher survey and make it available to teachers, etc.? All of that available within that monthly implementation timeline. So you could add it to your Outlook calendar, Google Calendar, anything like that. So you know month by month what's going on as well. Now I'm going to break it down in measure by measure, element by element within the principal evaluation process. I'm going to start first with the building improvement plan. Then I'm going to talk about the building personnel development organizer, and then the principal professional development organizer before getting into the next three. These organizers are all built to operate the same way as the organizers for speech language pathologists, counselors, instructional coaches, units of instruction with teachers. All of the organizers follow the same exact process. There should be a beginning conversation at the beginning of the year or at the moment where you're expecting your administrators, in this case, to start entering in data to the organizer itself. And then they should have the opportunity throughout the cycle to enter in data, to possibly get feedback from you, have conversations with you about how the process is going. And then we have a final conversation with the administrator before we score the organizer itself. So let me go ahead and talk about the building improvement plan and its overall purpose and function within the principal evaluation process. The building improvement plan process organizer allows you to get a glimpse for how a principal, how an administrator is able to take a chunk of the building improvement plan and how they're able to work with it, implement it, include others in it as they go through the school year. This organizer is not meant to be a complete review of the full building improvement plan itself. It's only supposed to be a small snippet that we can see, oh, they know how to incorporate multiple stakeholders. They know how to make sure this is a positive culture. They know how to take a step-by-step process and implement it, check to make sure it's working, and make reflective decisions as needed. And so with that, it's an organizer that can quickly identify how an administrator is able to work towards improvement without having to look through the building improvement plan as a whole. This way, we're able to see the choices they made, the decisions they made, and then how they reflected upon those decisions, made changes as needed. We do have resources available to help with introducing this to your principals, getting more information about it for yourself, or other information as well. Those resources are available on slide 25. I'll go ahead and talk about those a little bit. The first is an EdHub module. This is a really deep breakdown of how does the building improvement process organizer connect to a school improvement plan. It allows for almost a complete walkthrough of the building improvement process organizer process from your desk to the administrator's desk and back to your desk. We also have in that second button on slide 25, the scoring rubric. So you can access that scoring rubric, take a look at what the rubric is measuring, what the different evaluation components are of that. And then we have available for you the third button is the building improvement plan process organizer template. This is a Word document of the same exact building improvement plan process organizer available within the data tool. If you would like administrators to get started on the building improvement plan process organizer for next year, I highly recommend you send them this Word document, have them save it, and then when we roll over the school year at the beginning of July, then they're able to update within the data tool the information about the organizer that they put within the Word document. What I like about the building improvement plan and where I think it fits is it fits really well with identifying what's going on across a school building or across a whole culture. And so as you're looking at how the principal, an assistant principal, a coordinator, or director are making decisions, this allows you that really wide lens of how are they making decisions that affect the whole culture, the building, the group as a whole. And so I really like it as that piece of the summative in the principal evaluation process. The next organizer we have available takes a more precise look at building personnel development and takes a more precise look at how does this instructional leader help other educators grow. And so that's the purpose of the building personnel development. It places a focus on the role of the principal, of the role of the administrator going through this evaluation and developing a strong instructional team. It's here to hopefully help you identify the strategic moves that a principal uses to help a select group of teachers grow. So we have the same resources available. Before I get into those, I do want to talk a little bit more about what this building personnel development organizer looks like. With the building personnel development organizer, what an administrator would be doing would be selecting 2 to 3 teachers to be working with and to be an integral part of their professional development growth. And so those could be maybe some teachers that have been identified as struggling with specific instructional practices. And this is a chance for the administrator to showcase their skills in improving a struggling teacher into a competent, successful teacher within the classroom. It could also be the opportunity to take a teacher and transform them into a teacher leader. How do we work to make this teacher turn into a teacher leader that then influences the rest of the culture as well? Maybe it's also an opportunity to get a strong teacher additional support with a instructional practice outside the main purview of the general indicators, the general teaching practices themselves. So there's a lot of flexibility on what teachers become involved within the building personnel development organizer and which teachers are selected to be a part of that process for the principal. But this does provide the chance to see with individual educators, how does this principal go through and help create additional strength, create additional improvement for the building and for those teachers themselves. So again, we have the same module. We have the building personnel development organizer walkthrough available via EdHub. We have the scoring rubric that breaks down element by element, what is expected to be seen within that organizer. And then we have available, again, a Word document so that you can review what is in the data tool around that personnel development organizer as well. As you have questions about the building personnel development organizer, feel free to ask those. Again, like the building improvement plan process organizer, this should be a conversation that you can have with administrators throughout the year. How are they selecting teachers to start? How's the implementation going throughout? What did they learn? How do they reflect? And then once you have everything you would like, you could go ahead and score that and make sure everything is as it should be able to offer feedback to your administrators with how they've responded and what they've put into the template itself. Then we get from where we were with the building improvement plan, which is that full view. We go down through the building personnel development, which is how do you improve a small cadre of teachers? And then we get to the principal professional development plan. And here we evaluate how does the principal improve their own practices, improve their own learning. So the principal professional development plan, the purpose is to allow the administrator to showcase the efforts and document the efforts that support their own personal professional growth. This is a way for them to identify their desired outcomes, their desired goals, where they want to improve at, and select the actions that will most likely lead to those outcomes. It is very similar to every other professional development plan, the teacher professional development plan, any specialist professional development plan, etc. In the very act of going through the process of having the conversations will help ensure that the goals be met. In some districts, just as with the teacher professional development plan, it's absolutely okay to have multiple administrators going through that same professional development plan. Where you're going to see the difference is in those reflective elements at the end of it of, okay, you went through these steps. What did you learn? What did it mean for your exact practice, for your exact school and your exact needs? That's where the difference should be. And so we could see the exact same goals, the exact same action steps, everything like that at the beginning. But by the end of the year with the professional development plan, we should see it more individualized, more in tune with the exact needs and the exact changes that are being supported within their building and their own leadership practice. Here on slide 31, we do have, again, the links that you should be familiar with by now. We do have an EdHub module to support your introduction and administrators' understanding of what the principal professional development plan is and how can they use that to guide and document their own professional growth. We also have the principal professional development plan scoring rubric available, so you could see that in the principal professional development plan organizer template. Again, if you want your administrators to start on their professional development plan this year so that they have some of it done before July, have them save it within that Word document available and then import it in, copy and paste it into the data tool once we roll the school year over at the beginning of July. We also have available for you a principal professional development plan data tool instructional walkthrough. This just provides more support of what the process is, how to maneuver through that professional development plan within the data tool. So a bunch of resources, again, with this part to help the implementation, help the conversations, and provide that first, how do I do this type answer as you need. And again, as they have questions, as you have questions about how do I go about implementing this, scoring this, having principals write this up, again, be in touch with us. We're here to help and provide support in any and every way we can. So those are the three organizers. And again, those organizers should be based on the same conversation that your administrators should be having with teachers around any other organizers they are creating and documenting. There should be a conversation at the beginning of the year, some follow-up throughout the year, and then a conversation at the end of the year where you provide suggestions, provide opportunities to edit, to make sure everything is accounted for as you want before you score it yourself. And so all of those timelines, everything like that is available within the monthly implementation timeline to help and to support the process throughout the year as well. Shannon mentioned supervision and management and having a little trouble evaluating that. That's something that we have heard pretty frequently. And so with that, we have developed an analysis of the building management organizer. This is an organizer not currently within the data tool. And it's not within the data tool for a few reasons. First of all, it was not an original part of the principal evaluation package. And at this point, we haven't added it to the data tool because of the limitations of how the data tool has operated in the past. We are moving forward. As I mentioned when I was talking about the instructional coach evaluation organizer, one of the ways we're moving forward is the customization. As we built this analysis of building management organizer, we understood that each district, each building, each administrator would have the need for very customized approaches to what were their management responsibilities and how does that look. And so we weren't able to accomplish that within the data tool as we built this organizer. One way to help with that is to keep this as a Word document, which you'll see in that green button at the top of slide 33. If you have the PDF packet, you can click on that, and that should download for you the analysis of building management organizer. This organizer is pre-populated with 10 of the most common tasks that most principals have to do related to building management. And again, they're 10 of the most common. As a Word document, though, you can modify that to your own district needs, to the needs of very specific administrators in your district as well. Just because those are the common tasks you see there, they do not have to stay there. It is a Word document. You can alter that, modify that as you need. This is a way for you to keep track of the building management and if they're accomplishing those management duties. As you find an issue, those managerial responsibilities can then become part of their notes that you make on their summative report, and then could also turn into a goal for the professional development plan process next year. Again, you can edit those tasks to be more specific with responsibilities, duties, or to customize it as much as you're able to. As you have questions about that, need help with that, again, please reach out to us. We will be here to help and support in any way. There is no scoring rubric attached with that analysis of building management organizer. It is just there as a place to document comments, document how successful the operation and management that the administrator is responsible for is happening throughout the year and throughout the evaluation cycle. The fifth part of the principal evaluation process is the teacher survey. This has been really important in terms of what we're learning about what goes on in school and what drives improvement. And so I do highly, highly suggest focus on the teacher survey and making that a part of, if not a specific principal evaluation component, at least something you use for your own district instructional improvement. It is very beneficial as to what it tells us about leadership and how that impacts teaching, how that impacts these student environments. We've done a lot of research the past year on feedback and what we're learning about feedback. I believe it's items 12 through 16 within the teacher survey that deal directly with how a principal is providing feedback and how a teacher ascertains the level of feedback they get throughout the year. And so if you have been completing the teacher surveys, you may want to especially look at those feedback components, those components under indicator 2.1 of the teacher survey to help guide some decisions, guide some conversations. But the teacher survey as a whole can provide you a lot of information on what type of instructional challenges, what type of instructional leadership may be strengths for each administrator. Resources we have available for the teacher survey are on slide 35. And we have instructions for how to create, how to end those teacher surveys. We have an interpretation guide for what the numbers in the teacher survey mean to help you understand the data that you're seeing. We also have for you teacher instructions for accessing the teacher survey. Once you've turned on the teacher survey, once you've created it and made it available for your teachers, this is an easy copy and paste type document that you can email out to teachers as well. And then we have a breakdown on that last button of the teacher survey items by leader indicator. These are the survey questions that each teacher will respond to and provide a score for each administrator. One of the challenges with the teacher survey that we've heard from teachers is that they don't believe it is truly confidential, that it is truly private, and that somehow they believe their name will be attached to the score they give an administrator. We have this as a completely confidential process. And as hard as it is, do try and assuage the fears of your teachers that there is no way for the principal to link back how they've scored that principal to any of the survey components and where they have scored. It is confidential and will remain confidential. And so I know that's a tough barrier for many districts, but I do suggest implementing this, having this part of the principal evaluation process. And even if it's not something you look at for individual principals, at least look at it from a district perspective for instructional improvement within the district as well. As you have questions about the teacher survey, again, drop those in the chat or be in touch with us at nee@missouri.edu or call our helpline number. The last piece of the principal evaluation process is student performance. And this is a consideration. This is something to be thinking about, as state statutes in Missouri and many other states still say that student performance must be used as part of principal evaluation. But each district has complete authority to do what you need to do and document it on the summative in a way that you want to collect that data. That may include student achievement data within principal evaluations, again, documenting that. That may include a look at student growth for a school or in a specific area, or finding academic weaknesses as a building and tracking that building growth. Again, a lot of flexibility in how that student performance piece looks within principal evaluation. But do think of avenues, think of current collections, how that looks, and then what you may want to include within the comments section of the summative report itself. And Aaron, thank you for the question about the teacher survey component. Is that once a year, or can people do it more often? And anybody that is currently using teacher surveys, if there's any advice from the district level, feel free to jump in on this. But I believe, and I have to make sure I'm telling you the right thing, it is once a year, I believe, within the data tool. If you want to use it more often, again, for instructional purposes, you can locate the student or the teacher survey items within help and resources are in this PDF packet. And you may want to send out a survey of your own that tracks throughout the year as well. That's something that you can do. And thank you, Paul, for the comment that you use it once a year. Okay. And as you may want to talk about using it more often, again, be in touch with us. We could work through what that may look like and what a generalized timeline for using the teacher survey or collecting teacher survey information more often may look like as well. So that's resources, a general overview of the principal evaluation process. Here we didn't want to take a deep dive into each of the individual elements. Those are available for you to look through on EdHub at your own convenience as you have time in an on-demand way. And we are, of course, always here to be of support. You can see that again, our email, nee@missouri.edu. Call us at 1-844-793-4357. Currently, our blog over the past few weeks and in the coming few weeks is also focused on overviews of the principal evaluation components and the processes. So do check our blog out at www.neeadvantage.com/blog. We will also continue sending emails to you, to all of our district contacts, and updating the data tool as well. You can also follow us on social media, whether that's at Facebook. You can follow us at facebook.com/NEEadvantage. Follow us on Twitter at NEEadvantage, or follow our EdHub page on Pinterest. That may be especially important for teachers, where we consistently provide processes, practices, different items available that may help instructional practices as well. As you may have individual questions, feel free, stick around. I'm not going anywhere until the last person leaves. So if you are ready to head out, feel free to do so. If you want to stick around, we're here, ready to talk, ready to answer any specific questions you may have. Thank you for the morning. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the summer ahead. Thank you all.